Good morning. Thank you for joining us. I'm Lily with San Antonio Water System, and today I am out here with Nathan, who works in our conservation department. He is also kind of our bug expert, and Nathan is going to talk to us about how we can get rid of fire ants naturally using some ingredients that you should be able to find fairly easily. So I'm going to step out of the frame, but before I do that, I want to remind everybody that you can swipe and share the Periscope, because if you live in South Texas, I know you deal with fire ants. And you definitely want to share this with other people. This is really something that's going to change your life when it comes to being outdoors. And so swipe and share. You can also tap the screen and give us hearts. And give us questions, because you've got the bug expert on. So thanks, Nathan. I'll let you take it.
Thanks, Liliana. Welcome, everyone, to today's SAWS Periscope. I'm Nathan Riggs in the Conservation Department at SAWS. During the day, I do conservation programs, and the rest of the time, I am a mild-mannered entomologist. Today, I wanted to talk a little bit about a problem that affects all of us, especially since here in springtime San Antonio, the Conservation Department is working our coupon programs. We are working our irrigation rebate programs, and when you get out and do these things, you are dealing with planting plants, removing grass, pulling weeds from your flower beds, watering those brand new plants. All of those things bring you in contact with fire ants and attract fire ants to that particular location. So we want to be able to provide some information to you about that and provide you with a treatment strategy that will get the fire ants down quickly and allow you to get back into the situation to continue the work you're doing without worrying about getting stung. So just a little bit of background on the problem itself. Fire ants are not native to Texas or the United States. They need water, sunlight, and food. And when you're watering your flower beds, your garden, your lawn, that provides the moisture they need, so they live in that nice round soil mound that they build and maintain. They're very susceptible to treatments like we're going to show you today, because they do live above the ground. And when we have a nice cool morning like we're having today in San Antonio, high 50s with sun, everybody's going to be up in that mound getting that warm temperature, and they are ready for a sneak attack. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Welcome to everyone on Facebook. Welcome to all of our viewers. I'm Nathan Riggs, and we're going to get started with the mixture itself. So what I have in front of me on the table, I have a gallon of water, just plain old tap water. Do not spend money on filtered bottled water. Ants don't care. So tap water is what we're going to talk about today. Then we're going to use orange oil. I have the Medina product here, but any sort of horticultural orange oil will work. You can find orange oil at nurseries, garden centers, feed stores. You can find it at Lowe's. I think locally H-E-B carries orange oil, grocery store. You can find it online. I know Amazon.com carries orange oil. So there are a lot of different places to go. We usually don't find it at Walmart or Home Depot. So if you can find it, that's wonderful there. But otherwise, there's tons of other places that you can look. So we have our orange oil, and then we also have Blue Dawn soap. Okay, Blue Dawn soap. Now, the reason that we're talking about these particular ingredients is because these have been tested in a scientific field trial through the Texas AgriLife Extension program. My former colleagues there, I used to work in that particular program, extensively field tested these ingredients to be able to find something that anyone can mix up at home and that works on fire ants. So many home remedies have been developed by people over the years that do not work. They do not kill fire ants. They make them angry and they make them move. So we want to show you something today that in field trials has a better than 70% kill rate on fire ants. So here's what we've got. We have 1 gallon of water. We have our Blue Dawn soap. I've already done the cooking style prep here. We have 3 ounces. With 3 ounces, 6 tablespoons of Blue Dawn soap. And then we are going to have 1.5 ounces of orange oil. That's 3 tablespoons of orange oil per gallon of water.
So we have a couple of questions.
Okay.
The first is
All right. Now, from an entomologist point of view, organic has a different meaning. So here is my definition of organic. Organic means comes from a natural source. There are a lot of organic approaches to fire ants and other insects on the market, baits, liquids like this. All organic means to me is comes from a natural source. And many of these organic approaches are just as strong and just as toxic as the regular conventional pesticides. They just come from a natural source. So it's a great question as far as organic goes. Organic, natural, whatever you want to call it, this could be considered that for sure. Yes.
Is it safe for pets?
Is it safe for pets? Okay, great question. Well, we have dish soap, which if you get enough of this into your system, it'll make you sick just like anything else. The orange oil is very strong, and it could potentially make a pet sick if they get enough of it. In the concentration that we're using, the pet would probably have to drink the mixture directly to have any sort of ill effect. So in the way that we're using this today, the safety factor is pretty darn good. Yes.
Another question, Nathan, does this kill carpenter ants?
Does this mixture kill carpenter ants? All right. Well, remember, we're talking about a mixture that is used to drench ants in the soil. Carpenter ants live in hollow trees. They live in wall voids. So the way that this mixture works here would not be effective on carpenter ants simply because of the treatment method. With carpenter ants, it usually involves dust insecticides or sprays or something inside of those voids to handle the carpenter ant. So unfortunately, not this approach. Great question. All right, so I have my 3 ounces of Blue Dawn soap, and I'm going to measure out my orange oil. And the most important thing you need to know here is start with the water first. Have your water ready first, because if you put your soap and your orange oil in and then add the water, you're going to have suds out the wazoo. We do not want suds out of our wazoo. We want water that is slimy from the soap, but without a lot of suds. So I'm going to measure out the orange oil, 1.5 ounces per gallon, which is 3 tablespoons. So I'm going to mix it, measure it into my handy dandy cup that wants to run away. Liliana's going to come help me.
I'll come hold.
Thank you. So there's 1, 2. Oh, Liliana's going to smell good. I got orange oil on her hands. 3. So this is 1.5 ounces of orange oil. Now the tablecloth's going to smell good too. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and put this into my water. Okay. This orange oil does come with a little bit of an emulsifier already, so it will readily mix with water. And then I'm going to go ahead and add my 3 ounces of soap. The reason that we use soap is, number one, the soap helps to additionally emulsify the orange oil in the water, and it helps it stick to the soil and the ants. We want this material to stick to them. All right.
So, will you recap for everybody what we're doing again?
Okay.
For those that joined?
I'm Nathan Riggs with SAWS Conservation. We are talking about a natural way to control fire ants in gardens, landscape beds, lawns, where you have just a mound or two that you need to control. So we have orange oil, 1.5 ounces per gallon. That is 3 tablespoons of orange oil per gallon. We have Blue Dawn soap, Blue Dawn soap. Do not use anything else. This is what's been tested to work. 3 ounces of Blue Dawn soap per gallon, which is 6 tablespoons of soap per gallon. We're mixing this material together in 1 gallon of water. Isn't that pretty? Okay. And the reason we start with the water and then we add our ingredients to the water so that we do not have excessive suds. We do not want suds. Okay? So we have our mixture ready to go, and we want to make sure that the fire ant mound we are treating is undisturbed. we want to sneak attack fire ants when we treat their mounds. If you disturb a fire ant mound before you treat it, they will disperse, your treatment will not be very successful, and you will end up with multiple colonies as a result.
So we have a question about whether it's safe for the grass or your plants.
Great question. Orange oil is used as a herbicide sometimes. And so the reason that we are using 1.5 ounces of orange oil per gallon is that this particular concentration does not pose harm to plants. When you get up around 3 ounces of orange oil per gallon, 4 ounces, it will burn plants at that point. So 1.5 ounces per gallon tends to not cause damage to plants as much. And so that's very important. Now, if you're applying this to grass, you may see a little bit of yellowing, but the grass will come back.
Just one other question.
Yes.
How does this compare to applying fire ant bait across your landscape?
Great question. How does a mound treatment like this compare to applying bait across your landscape? Well, this is intended to treat a specific mound that you can see. And it's a quick kill. This will kill the ants within minutes. Fire ant baits are intended to be applied to large areas so that your ant colonies can find the pieces and take them back home to be shared. And a lot of times baits are really effective because they will get fire ant colonies that are too small to make a mound yet. And so very effective. Fire ant baits have an extremely low toxicity against everything but ants. And I completely advocate the use of fire ant baits for fire ants, whether it's the organic approaches that contain spinosad, which is a bacterial ingredient, or amdro, which is all over the place. It's been there for years. Great stuff. So super duper question. Fire ant baits are great if you have a lot of mounds and it's way too expensive to treat them individually. But if you just have one or two, our sneak attack method today is the way to go. Okay.
Sneak attack 'em.
Sneak attack. So I think now we are ready to treat. So I'm going to come over here to our mound. Okay. I'm going to get down here next to them. Now this is our fire ant mound. You will notice that it is raised, it is smooth. It's very characteristic of the fire ants in Texas. There is no activity on the surface. It is undisturbed. So what we want to do is we want to start in the center and treat outward in a circle until we get all of the mound area that has been drenched by this material. So I'm going to start in the center and I'm going to work my way out. You'll notice that the soil collapses because this is just a honey patch comb worth of soil that has been excavated and worked by these ants. You can see they're all boiling to the surface because we are disturbing them. Ants hate to be flooded. That's why they're building a raised mound right now. They hate to be flooded. And so we are treating them right now. If you can sort of see on the broadcast, some of these ants are already starting to behave a little erratically because the material in the orange oil does affect their nervous system. So you notice we had very little suds, we had a really good treatment, and if you look really close, these ants are already starting to behave erratically and they're crawling around on the surface because we have flooded them out. This colony, most of the mortality will occur in the next few minutes, and we should have most of the death within a few hours.
Quick question.
Yes.
Would you recommend this method around or near vegetables or a compost pile?
Okay, great question. Would this be used around vegetables or a compost pile? Absolutely. The orange oil does not get absorbed by garden plants or fruits or vegetables. The soap is not going to be absorbed into your food plants. It is a great approach. It's natural for that, and for a compost pile too. The material in this is not going to transfer into the plants, and in fact, if the compost pile is handled properly, this will be degraded in the natural composting process. Great question.
Should we zoom in again on
Sure. Let's take a look and see how we're doing. You'll notice here that we have a lot of the ants have floated up. We have the little white dots here, which are the brood or the larvae, and then we have some ringed ants in here, which are the teenagers in the colony. They are going to fly away to start colonies of their own. But these ants are already starting to die. You can see right here, there's one of the queens that's already dead, and the material is starting to work. These ants are getting a little jerky as the material is affecting their nervous system, but the mortality is already starting to occur. This is a quick method, and the toxicity is excellent against non-target species because we just treated this mound only.
There was a question of, does this work on regular ants? I'm not sure what
Does this work on regular ants? Well, yes, this would work on any type of ant that nests in the ground. The only difference is that ants that are not fire ants, they excavate all their soil to the surface, but they live way down under the ground. And so this material has to be able to penetrate down where the ants are. So the likelihood of success may not be as great because of the depth in the soil. This will be absorbed by the soil more than it'll touch the ants.
So would we want to get rid of all other ants?
Great question. Do we want to get rid of the other ants? Well, in Texas, there's only 3 species that sting. Fire ants, big red harvester ants, and there's another tropical species that we find way down South Texas. Normal ants that you find in a landscape are there cultivating the soil, eating bugs, doing their thing, and if their concentrations are high enough, they will help keep new fire ant colonies from forming in your yard. And so it's important to not do large-scale lawn treatments if you don't have to. Only treat insects that need to be treated instead of doing a broad spectrum treatment in your landscape.
How do we identify which one is the fire ant?
Great question. How do we identify fire ants? First and foremost is this raised mound. No other ant makes a mound like this in Texas. Secondly, fire ants can be different sizes in a colony. When they become adults, they can be large or small. It is not indicative of their age. Fire ants are just different sizes. They are kind of a rusty brown color with a darker abdomen, or the tail, or the butt, however you want to call it. Abdomen, entomologist, abdomen. So rusty brown color with kind of a darker abdomen, and they scurry around, usually close to the nest. They are good predators. They eat fleas and ticks, caterpillars, lots of different types of insects. They're top shelf predators, and the reason why they're so successful.
Could you go over the ingredients?
Yeah. Okay. The ingredients for our fire ant mound treatment: 1 gallon of water, 1.5 ounces of orange oil, which is 3 tablespoons per gallon. Blue Dawn soap, not Green Dawn soap or generic blue soap. Blue Dawn soap is what we want. We want 3 ounces of soap per gallon, which is 6 tablespoons. You start with water, add the ingredients to the water, and mix them together so that we have a nice mixture without a lot of suds.
Could you use this as a spray and use it inside your house is one of the questions.
That's a good question. Because of the concentration of the soap in this, it's probably not a good idea to use it as an indoor spray. It could cause sticky residues. It would smell really nice, but it's probably not a good indoor spray at all.
And would there be a need to retreat?
Would there be a need to retreat? Well, with fire ants, there's always the chance that you didn't get all the ants in the colony. That's why this particular approach is 70% effective or more. All the ants have to be up high. You've got to be able to get all of that soil treated. If it's a little bit dry and the ants are down deeper in the soil for whatever reason, that control may not be great, and you may have to come back within a few days and do it again. It's always a possibility with fire ants that you don't get them the first time. They're tough.
So we had a question about where they could find information on the studies.
On the studies. Okay, if you go to fireant.tamu.edu, there is a link on that particular site for demonstrations and field research. And that information can be found on that particular site. Yes.
And do you want to tell them about garden style and the articles you've written?
Absolutely. last week's e-newsletter on gardenstylesanantonio.com, I actually wrote about this particular approach using this orange oil, water, and soap method. And so if you go look on gardenstylesa.com, you can look up by author, you can look for my name, or you can look for fire ants and in the search button and find that. And I'm also going to edit the article and put the link for today's broadcast in there, so you can go to catch.me, KATCH.me, under the SAWS recordings, and all of our previous periscopes are there, including today's broadcast. Okay, well again, Nathan Riggs, I'm in the SAWS Conservation Department. I am so glad that you joined us today to learn a little bit about a natural way to handle fire ants in your lawns, landscapes, and gardens. And I hope you learned something today. You can tune in for future Periscope broadcasts and go to gardenstylesanantonio.com for more information.